Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. It's time to put a little bit more load on my Prometheus server. What do you say? So you may be asking yourself, what the heck is the Prometheus server? Well, that means you haven't been following along on all my videos, but I'll forgive that. Prometheus is my main, what's my main server for processing. In other words, for software that is processor intensive. Things like my surveillance software or studio recording software, whatever you want to call it. My Plex, my Emby servers. And it's not busy enough. The CPU sits anywhere between 23 and 25%. This is an Intel Core i5 10th Gen 10400 processor at 2.9 gigahertz, and it typically is boosting up to almost 4 gigahertz. Well, here, I'll show you right now. There you go. For example, right now it's boosting up to 3.9, 3.8, right around there. Now, this is the finished product, so I want to talk to you a bit more before I show you much more of this, but this is the unit I'm talking about. And it also has a UHD graphics, a 630 chip on that die from Intel. I have been forever looking for one server to rule them all, and I think I've finally found it. But there are a couple of unanswered questions I have. How much can I put on this server? How much more can I have this server do before it says, you know what, nah. You know, before the video starts getting glitchy on the surveillance. I also use some of this video to record in my YouTube videos. So I need to be able to scrub through the video on there and pick the parts I want to export, that kind of thing. So how much of an impact will I be putting on a system if I start adding more of this stuff to it? So I'll show you what we start with, the changes I'm going to make. We'll make those changes, and then we'll come back at the once I'm done with that, and we'll talk about a little bit more what the plans are moving forward for this machine. All right, so first things first, if you hear an annoying beep in the background, I beg you to please ignore the beep. Okay, so we're over on Prometheus, and as you may or may not know, Prometheus is my big kahuna server. It's an Intel i5 Gen 10 CPU, and it's got 32 gig of RAM, and we got a bunch of hard drives in it. This is my drive vendor machine. This is my surveillance machine / studio recording machine / Plex / Emby server. And as you can see down here, it's been up for about 90 days now, for about 3 months. I want to make some changes on this server. I'm going to have it, I'm going to add an additional task to it. And I think it'll handle it okay. I'm going to turn this into a Minecraft server as well. We'll just see how, I mean, worst case, I'd have to move Minecraft back off of here onto somewhere else. But for my locally hosted Minecraft, I want to give this a try, and then we'll see how it does when we actually let people in. But there's also some maintenance that needs to be done on this system as far as updates and whatnot go. And I want to remove Hyper-V from here. I've got Hyper-V running on here. I don't need that loaded. So I guess the first thing we need to do is we'll need to go into Blue Iris and tell it to stop running. And it's kind of weird the way they do it. You've got to actually go into Blue Iris. And there's an update available. And what you have to do is come over here to, where is it? Settings. Start up and deselect run as a Windows service. And click on OK. And then it should stop running. And it looks like it has. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that stopped running. So now we can probably go ahead and I've turned it off on startup. So the next thing we'll do is come down here to Emby. We'll go ahead and exit Emby, and we'll exit Plex. You couldn't see that, but so I basically went down here, and Plex and Emby were running. I just right-clicked on them and told them not to be used right now. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to uninstall Hyper-V on here. I don't need it. I don't need to run any virtual machines. I can run all my Windows programs natively. So, and as you can see, I've got quite a few network cards on here. Actually, I only have two. I have a 1 gig network card and I have a 10 gig network card. So if we come down here and we go to adapter options, actually the two that I have are the Mellanox and then the Intel Ethernet connection, I219V. So I need to be aware of that, because once I uninstall Hyper-V, I may lose connectivity to this machine. So, which means I'll have to pull it out of the rack, put it on the bench, connect to it, yada, yada, yada. So I don't like, this is why I've delayed doing this maintenance on this server for so long. And so let's see if I can bring up control panel. Yeah. And then I'm going to uninstall a program, and then I'm going to do turn Windows features on or off. And then simply right here, I take off Hyper-V, click OK. Now, right now, this machine is at IP address 12 and 48. So 12 for the for the gigabit. Let's just verify that. Yeah, it's at 5.12 for the gigabit. And then it's at 5.48 for the 10 gig. So now that it's uninstalled, I'm going to go ahead and restart, and I hope we're going to get lucky here. So I'll go ahead and restart it. All right, so we're back after a reboot, and seems like everything came back up. Plex and Emby are both up and running. You see we had that little initial spike in the CPU when they first came up. Not a lot of processes running. And let's see if Hyper-V was taken off. Oh, sure. And there it is. It's gone. So good. Let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and look at our network cards. See if they've returned back to normal. Yep. So we'll go ahead and rename this one. This is the single gig. So we'll rename that Gigabit 1. Just so I know that's the 1 gig adapter. Let's just verify it still has an IP address of 5.12. It does. The 10 gig. We'll come back and revisit this later. I'm just going to leave this alone for now. I don't want to break anything further, so we'll leave that sitting here at 5.48. And that looks good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and terminate Plex and Emby again, because I want to do the updates. So I'm just going to right click on both of those and end them. And we'll come back in here and do some Windows updates. So I'm sure there are some, yeah, there's the 21H1. So this is the big update I've been avoiding. So I'm going to go ahead and download and install it, let it run, and we'll report back when something changes. All right, so she's ready for a reboot. So we'll go ahead and restart and come around on the other side. All right, so we've done the update, survived the reboot. Plex and Emby came back up. I'm not going to show that to you, but we'll go back to updates and just check again. I want to make sure I plan to keep this up and running at least another 90 days, so I want to make sure that I have verified there are no more updates. And of course, there always are. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get through all of these updates, and then once they're all done, then we'll come back and move on to the next item. All right, let's hope I'm doing this next step correctly. So I'm over here on my applications drive, and I'm going to load Fork Launcher. I'm going to go ahead and run it, and this should install Fork. Yeah, it should. Now it's going to put version 0.8.2, and my last version is a different one. So we'll need to take that into account. Okay, I'm going to ignore it. I need to also install Java. So I thought I had a I thought I had Java here. Well, let's go look. Let's see if I got Java on here. Yeah, and I use 16. Okay, that's why. If it had, some of my applications require an older version of Java, so that's why I was a little hesitant to install there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just let it do its install process. Okay, and it looks like it's complete. And then let's see if we can find Fork. Yeah, we'll probably have to do that this way. Yeah, there it is. Do. All right, so let's send this to the desktop, create a shortcut for it. And then I also want to create a shortcut for Fork itself, because, okay, let's see if we can launch it now that we have Java working. Okay, so, yeah. Here we go, it's working. Now, let's do this. Let's copy from here. I have a backup of Fork. Let's see. And then we should be able to put it here. Paste. And I'm going to tell it, yeah, I know. I like living on the edge. Worst case, this won't work. But if it asks me, I'm going to overwrite any files that are there. And this will just basically copy my full install and configuration. Minecraft makes it real easy to move your servers around. I probably don't want to overwrite the system files because this Fork is a different version. It's a newer version. So that could create a problem, huh? Well, so I'm going to skip these files for now because it says they already exist. And I wonder if that'll allow me to keep this new version of Fork. Okay, so I've got everything copied. So now let's launch it and see if it sees the configuration. Well, yes, it does. So there's my Twitch hardcore, and here's my Unky Joe's Playhouse copy. So let's see if I can start it up. Go ahead and click on Start. Let's see if it starts now. And it shows it's version 0.8.2. All right, so it looks like it was successful and it started. So now what I want to do is I want to go test that. So I'm going to go make some changes to my firewall. You don't need to see that. Well, maybe you do. Then come with me. Now, fortunately for me, I thought ahead and I created aliases on my pfSense. And one of those is for my Minecraft server. So now that has changed from 10 to 12, so it's just a matter of coming here to edit it and change that to 12 and then save and then apply. And actually my blue iris is now at 5.12 as well, so I'm going to leave that alias in there and apply that as well. So I've got Plex, Minecraft, and my surveillance blue iris on 5.12. And let's go see if I can connect via Minecraft now. All right, so I see W has been hard at work. Wow, look at all the stuff he's put in here. So yeah, I'm flying around, and the world is updating itself, and it seems to be pretty decent. I think I can set my speed something a little bit faster. So there's my, yeah, let's see how it's keeping up. Let's go down, there's Prometheus. And yeah, it seems to be doing okay. I've got it set to use 4 gig of RAM and CPU. Now this is without the software running for the surveillance, or for the in-office recording, I should say, or in-house recording. But yeah, I'm flying around here pretty well. It's not a bad experience. Yeah, all my noises are working. Go down my purple staircase. Thank you, W. And into my library. Yeah, it's working great. And let's get Blue Iris going. So this will we'll get Blue Iris running as a service. So we'll need to come back and go up here to Startup, run as a Windows service. And we'll need to type in our super secret password. Okay, it says the service has been installed, so we'll go ahead and close Blue Iris. And then we'll wait a second, make sure it's not running. Nope, don't see it there. Then we'll go ahead and run it again. And this should install it as a service. Yeah, it says starting service, waiting. Cool. I'm not going to do the update. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close this, which should leave Blue Iris up and running. And it has. As you can see, it's starting to accumulate lots and lots of RAM. You see my gigabit, you'll see my data coming up on the Ethernet on the 10 gig. So that's cool. It's now receiving camera data on my 10 gig connection. That's kind of cool. I probably ought to go up and see if I can load the web interface for that. So I'll be right back. All right, so I've got Fork up and running. I've got the Emby, I've got Plex up and running, and I have Blue Iris, which, as you can see, is a little piggy when it comes to using CPU power. Of course, Fork will as well. So I've now had this brilliant idea. I mean, the whole reason I got this server was to put it to work, and frankly, I don't see the CPU working hard enough. And keep in mind, I don't have Fork up and running either, but what I want to do is I want a place to store my software called Home Automation. And why not store it on the unit that is running as my surveillance server, my home theater entertainment server, my Plex, my Emby. You know, it does everything but host files here. So, and Drive Bender. So why not add Home Assistant to that and just have it all in one location? Could serve on some electricity, that's for sure, and really put this 10th Gen i5 to work as opposed to just having it sit around doing nothing. So what I've done is I'm going to run Home Assistant as a virtual machine, but I don't want to run it under Hyper-V. Hyper-V under Windows 10 does not have quite as many features as something like VirtualBox or VMware Workstation would have. For whatever reason, Microsoft they kind of went so far with Hyper-V and then they stopped. So long story short, too late, I know. We're going to go to the downloads folder, and I've downloaded Oracle VM VirtualBox, and we're going to install that. And then I have the Home Assistant file here that'll go with that. So I'm going to show you how I install it. So first thing I'm going to do is install VirtualBox. And I'm just going to accept all the defaults. And it's warning you could lose connectivity because it does mess with your network adapters. But yeah, I guess it happened so quickly I didn't even notice that I was missing or lost my connection. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish and let it start up. And there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. And then I'm going to install the extension pack as well. So I'm just going to, I've already done it once, so I'm going to reinstall. Now there's nothing in the documentation that says you need to do this, but I just like having the VM extension pack there. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new virtual machine, and we'll just call this Home Assistant, right? And that's fine. I can put it under there. We're going to do a Linux, and it's going to be another or other Linux 64-bit. Click on Next. We're going to give it 2 gig of RAM. That's what's recommended. And we're going to use an existing virtual hard disk file. Now, what I didn't do is copy this. So we'll copy this file. That needs to go into the users, DAMA, and then I'm going to put it under VirtualBox VMs, Home Assistant. I'm going to paste it there. And then I should be able to use that. So click on Add. There it is. We're going to use that virtual disk file. Click on Choose. Okay, now it's chosen it, so we'll go ahead and click on Create. And there's our VM. Now, one of the things we need to come out here and do is under Settings, come out under System, under Motherboard, and make sure we enable EFI for special OSs only. Warts and all. Settings, go back to Network, change that to Bridged. And we're going to bridge it to the Intel, the main Intel NIC card. And click OK, and then we'll start it again. And hopefully I haven't screwed anything up. Now it should get then an IP address on my local subnet, hopefully. And it did. So it's 5.60, port 8123. So let's flip over to a web browser. All right, so I've got the IP address typed in there in the port. We're going to hit enter. And it tells me we're making some progress. It says preparing Home Assistant. This can take up to 20 minutes. So that is good news. All right, so that did not take long at all. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. So we're going to call this Bill Adama. And the username will be Adama. And the password will be our super secret password. It's so super secret, we got to enter it in there twice. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Account. And I'm going to have it, we'll change this to UJP for Unky Joe's Playhouse. And we'll let it detect. Close enough. Next. Let's see, share. No, I'm not going to share any data right now. So I'm going to click on next, and then I'm going to click on finish. And there we go. It was that easy to set up Home Assistant. Now, granted, I haven't configured anything in it, but there you go. That's how easy it was to set up Home Assistant in a virtual machine. So we're back over here on our server, Prometheus, and you'll see we're at about 26%. VirtualBox, the Home Assistant software, is just kind of sitting out there using very little resources. So let's go ahead and launch Fork so we can get our Minecraft server back up. Let's go ahead and minimize it. And wow, we're actually putting this machine to work, even more work. So now what we do is we wait and see. We wait and see until we get a few guys out on Minecraft playing simultaneously. We wait until we are doing something intensive with Home Assistant or with the surveillance software or Plex or Emby, and see how it handles the load long term. And see, last time it was up nearly 90 days. So far it's been up 2 hours and 15 minutes with all the changes I've made. And eventually here I'll be able to see how much current this unit is using, how many watts this thing is using with all this stuff running on here. I've got to change out some equipment on the rack, so that'll be a perfect time to plug a power monitoring device into here and see how much power this server, well, this makeshift home lab server actually takes up while it's running. So you can see as we started making changes to this server, it had been up for nearly 90 days. And this is what I tell people about Windows. You know, don't run Windows 10. It reboots. You know, there are things you can do to keep Windows 10 from installing updates and rebooting if you know what you're doing. So I've done videos on that. There are other videos out there. So I would recommend that one first. And then, is Windows stable? Well, hell yeah, it's stable. You know, as long as you get it to a point and then you don't change it, it's like anything else, it's stable. So while there are a lot of people out there doing exactly what I've done on hardware, for example, the one to rule them all, the closest other one to rule them all for me was Unraid. It came pretty damn close to being what I've turned Prometheus into, which is kind of an all-in-one server. I mean, we're paying for all these CPU cycles and threads and cores and all this RAM, and I want to see it working. I don't know about you. So I could run these enterprise level servers, but they won't do what this new modern, well, fairly new modern 10th gen i5 processor will do, as you can see. And not only to mention, we've added Fork to the equation, so my Minecraft server is now hosted there. And we've also put on there, you know, the Home Assistant program in a VM under Oracle VM. And as you saw for yourself, you know, unless I'm running all these applications at one time or doing something really aggressive with Home Assistant, it's not going to affect anything. The one caveat may be running Fork and running a Minecraft server and letting people get onto that. That may start to slow the system down a little bit, but I'm really, you know, I don't see any speed. I keep looking up here at my surveillance video to see if there's any glitches. Sometimes it'll put a little clock up there to let you know it can't stream fast enough, but it looks like it's streaming my it's streaming all my stuff out of my gigabit 10 Ethernet adapter, and the incoming is going through my gigabit 1 adapter. So, and Windows took care of that automatically for me. So it's running great. What can I tell you? Don't be afraid to do it. Now, the idea behind this is I would rather have one big honkin' 4U unit in my rack that is somewhat, you know, energy conscious. And we'll see, once I do some changes in the server room, we'll see how much wattage this server is actually pulling. And we'll do some math stuffs. And we'll try to figure out what it's costing me to run that thing for a year. I've had this unit, about 6 months now? I think I built 6 months ago. I built this. I really don't remember. And I'm actually now putting it to work. So you saw we've got Home Assistant on there. And Home Assistant, if it'll run on a Raspberry Pi, which I don't recommend, for crying out loud, it should do great on a virtual machine. I would have loved to have put Windows or Linux subsystem on there for Windows and done a native install of it, but it just wasn't meant to be. I want to learn Home Assistant before I spend a lot of time learning how to install it on some alternative operating system. And besides, I'm a Windows guy. You know that. I'm a GUI guy. I love my Windows, and you see why. This is, like I said, a plain Jane Windows 10 Pro, i5 10400, lots of RAM, and using the built-in video card for streaming for Plex and Emby. And I share my Plex library with a few other people. I haven't had any complaints of speed or anything. And frankly, it's been running here at home just great. So take that for what it's worth. So there you go, people of the internet. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative. As always, please give us a thumbs up down below if you like the content. If you liked the content, leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of any new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. We accept PayPal, Patreon, and the YouTube join function. Please come back and see us again. I know I enjoyed the heck out of making this video. And don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.